welcome to Not Quite Right, the podcast in which non-experts explain things that we think we know to other people. In this case, there are two of us. My name is Casey.
And I'm Brooke.
And
we're married.
So we just decided that we have a lot of conversations with each other that entertain us, and we felt like we should share them with the world, and everybody should partake of the random shit. Are we a family-friendly show? The random things that we talk about, and the way that we decided to do that is in an educational way so that people can better understand the world around them.
So what we're going to do is every time we record an episode, we're each going to pick a topic that we think we understand better than the other does. So that way we can say, you didn't quite get that right. That's not quite right, you might say.
One might say that.
And then we will explain the
right version, I guess?
We'll explain it better than the person currently understands it.
Right. We're not promising it's actually correct, just more correct.
Slightly more correct.
Ideally. So let's get rolling, Brooke. Let's do this.
Okay, Casey. So I'm going to go first. My chosen topic is reproduction. And I think I know more about reproduction than Casey does. So I'm going to let Casey explain first his understanding of human reproduction.
I should preface this. I've taken health class, so I feel like I know a little bit. So here's what I think how it goes. Okay. So during the act of intercourse, we'll keep this scientific. We'll be professional about this. You can.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
If you have kids in the room, just be aware of that. We're not going to be gross, but I mean, why did you choose this? You saw the title.
You chose this.
I'm talking about the listener.
Oh,
I'm addressing
listener,
them.
Why are you listening to this?
I'm addressing them for judging us for the way that we're talking about this.
Of course.
So during that act, there are these little, I'm going to call them little soldiers, okay? And they're called sperm. And what they do is, during the act of intercourse, they start swimming. I'm making a swimming motion with my hand up the I don't know all the parts there, the lady parts. Okay, simultaneously, ideally for reproduction, women have eggs, okay, and these eggs are stored in egg baskets. I know what it looks like on a diagram, okay. They look like it's a thing next to like the kidney-ish. Anyway,
this was the best choice ever for a topic.
Okay,
continue.
So the egg's coming down the little tube.
Right.
I don't think it's a fallopian tube, but that's in there somewhere. And anyway, so the sperm, and it's not just one sperm. It's like thousands of these little guys. Okay, they're swimming up along the way, and meanwhile, the female body is literally trying to murder them the entire way. I'm right about this, I think. And anyway, a bunch of them, the survivors, the few, the proud, this is why they're soldiers, they start swarming around the egg and basically like just attacking it. And and eventually one of them busts through and it forms a blastocyst eventually, or something like that. Anyway, it fertilizes the egg, and the genetic transfer starts happening there, and then the egg gets implanted on the uterine wall of the uterus, which is in the woman body part.
Uterine does mean of the uterus.
Yeah, exactly.
So you said it twice.
Okay.
Continue.
So anyway, then the egg does its thing, and it becomes a blastocyst, which is, I know that phrase. It's when it like becomes like a cell, and there are different parts, and then from there it becomes another thing, and then it becomes a fetus, and eventually that turns into a baby, and that's reproduction.
I like how I can tell which terms you've learned from our visits to the doctor's offices over the course of our IVF stuff. It's entertaining. That was real entertaining. So, it's not quite right. So, you do have a lot of the basic elements correct. There are sperm.
It usually starts with intercourse.
Right. Well, I was going to skip the intercourse part.
Okay.
Because you made it awkward enough the first time we brought it into this.
No, we're good.
Okay.
Probably. Okay, so intercourse. Okay, so it starts with a man and a...
No. when a mommy and a daddy love each other very much,
and have been watching
then
Game
the
of
other
Thrones,
stuff.
and they say to each other, let's look at this another.
Okay, it's my turn. It's my turn. So, intercourse happened, and from the male reproductive system, millions, not thousands, of sperm shoot into the woman's reproductive system. These millions of sperm travel up through the vagina and through the uterus and up into the fallopian tubes. That is what the tubes are called.
Okay, so the uterus and then the fallopian tubes.
Right.
There's not a tube before that. It's
No.
Just, okay.
There's just the fallopian tubes.
Okay. The fallopian tubes are the ones that look like two little
Yeah, the fallopian
bull horns,
tubes...
like on the
The
diagram.
fallopian tubes are the little bull horns that attach the uterus to the ovaries.
Ovaries.
Ovaries are the egg baskets, I believe is the term you used.
I knew that one.
The ovaries produce what are actually called ovum. They're the eggs. Ovum is like the technical term. So an ovary will expel one of these ova into the fallopian tube, where it's supposed to meet up with the sperm at some point.
How does it know when to expel it?
It does it monthly. That's what that has to do with the whole menstrual cycle. Getting into all of that detail it's a lot more to talk about. So
Okay, but that's why you're more likely to at different parts of the month.
Right.
And
Right.
Yeah.
That's why you have to do it. Ovulation is when the egg is expelled from the ovary, and that happens in the middle of a woman's cycle. So around day 14 or 15 or whatever day of your cycle, depending on the woman and how exactly her body works, the ovary expels this ova and it travels into the fallopian tube, and that is where the attack that you described takes place.
More like a siege, I guess.
Yes, it is a siege. The sperm basically do attack the egg. They come at it from every side. They have these little chemicals that they release that eat away at the wall of the ova to get inside. And then whichever one makes it inside first, the nucleus of that sperm cell joins with the nucleus of the egg cell, and then they start doubling. So at first it's the two cells, right, that have come together and they form a zygote.
Zygote, okay.
Zygote is what it is first. And then...
Is it ever possible for two sperm to get in at once? Say there's a tie.
Okay, so if there's a tie, that's how you get identical twins. No, that's not identical twins, but that is one way that twins can happen.
Okay.
I think. I'm actually not 100% sure, but I know the answer better than you do, so I'm still the expert
Let's
here.
just say yes, that's how twins happen.
Well, there's a number of ways that twins can happen.
Nope, twins only happen because there's a tie.
Twins can also happen if there happen to be two ova that two different sperm get into. Those are fraternal twins, that they are completely different cells to start out with. And then identical twins are, once you formed the zygote at some point in its development, very early, splits into two identical cell clumps.
But that's coming from one,
But that's coming from
one daddy sperm, if you like.
Right, one sperm and one egg split into two identical embryos.
Okay.
So once you have this zygote / embryo, there's a bunch of different words for it. Blastocyst is one of the stages of an embryo. It comes a little bit later.
But I got that right,
But you got that right. So the embryo travels down the fallopian tube, and it does embed itself in the wall of the uterus. And if it's able to do all of that stuff right, which is actually very hard and not very likely, the average couple only has a 25% chance of conceiving every month, even if they're trying to get pregnant.
Even if they time it perfectly?
Even if they time it perfectly, they're checking cervical mucus and they're taking basal body temperature.
Mucus? That sounds disgusting.
It's literally just mucus comes out of the cervix and you look at it. That's how you check the cervical mucus.
Oh, that's so weird.
If it's of the right color and consistency, then it indicates that ovulation will happen soon. Because there's a certain kind, if the mucus looks kind of like egg whites do, then that's actually really intense sperm food, meant to entice the sperm up into the uterus and fallopian tubes to do all of the stuff that I have described.
Okay, that's super weird and gross. I don't want to know that. Let's go back to the eggs.
So back to the embryo.
So if it's the 75%, the egg just eventually gets kind of kicked out and.
Yeah. So like everything could go perfectly right, and you have this embryo. It's in the fallopian tube. It's traveling down into the uterus, and it just doesn't implant into the wall. Like all of these different phases can go, like the sperm can just not make it, there could be no egg, there's all sorts of things in the 75% that make it so pregnancy doesn't actually happen. But if you're in that 25% that you do get pregnant from it, then the embryo does implant into the wall of the uterus, and it goes through all of these embryonic stages. It eventually becomes a fetus, and eventually the woman births it. And so that's reproduction.
Okay. I feel like I've got that.
I'm pretty sure I did better than you.
No, I feel like I understand it now.
Okay, good.
So, there's an ovary and a zygote, and that goes to the fallopian tube. And anyway, I feel like if we rewind the episode, I'll definitely get it.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And one interesting extra thing. So, like, the zygote is in the fallopian tube, right? The little embryo's in the fallopian tube, and it has to travel out. If it accidentally implants there, that's called an ectopic pregnancy, and it can kill a woman.
That sounds horrible.
It is, and you never know if it's happened except with an ultrasound, or if it bursts your fallopian tube and you're in extreme pain and have to go to the hospital.
Also, ectopic pregnancy sounds like something from Ghostbusters.
An ectoplasmic pregnancy.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, you've given birth to a nightmare creature.
Quick, call the conductors of the metaphysical examination. AKA Ghostbusters.
So, the moral of the story is our bodies are gross and we should be ashamed of them.
That's a lie. Okay, welcome back for part 2.
We talked about reproduction the first time, which is an important topic, something that everybody should know at least the basics about.
Unless you live in states that are abstinence only, then you should never learn about reproduction.
Oh God, no, yeah, nothing. If you live in any of the following states, Utah, Texas, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Wyoming, Montana, just disregard anything that we've taught you and just don't do it, okay? Just don't.
Just never have sex and you'll be fine.
Don't tell them the S word.
Oh, my bad.
So, we're going to move right on to another topic that is arguably of equal importance to reproduction that I feel like I know a little bit about, and that's professional wrestling. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you know about professional wrestling, either its history or its tropes, or just kind of what your sense of the sport, and I'm using air quotes with that, your sense of what professional wrestling is.
Okay, so professional wrestling is when a bunch of people go to a giant arena and then they throw themselves at each other and crush their chairs over other people's heads. Although apparently that is an illegal move now. As you told me that once.
To the head. Chair shots to the head, or
chair. Yeah, well, that's what I said. A chair shot to the head.
Okay, they're frowned upon.
Right. Hang on, it's my turn.
Sorry.
So I know about John Cena and The Rock. Those are things that I know that I'm pretty sure have to do with professional wrestling.
And they are. What are their roles in professional wrestling?
They are professional wrestlers.
That's true.
So, for argument's sake, then I'm going to say that, let's say we've got a match between John Cena and The Rock, and fans of both of them will crowd this big arena, and then a guy will stand in the middle and say, "Let's get it on," I believe. Is okay, everything I know about professional wrestling I learned from that MTV show with the claymation wrestling.
Celebrity Deathmatch.
Celebrity Deathmatch. Oh my gosh. That was the best show.
Oh.
That's Celebrity Deathmatch is everything that I know about professional wrestling. And if you don't know what Celebrity Deathmatch is, and you have no aversion to watching claymation figures smash each other in gory fashions, please go watch it. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube.
This podcast has been brought to you by MTV, circa the 1990s.
Anyway, so, hang on. It's still my turn. So, John Cena and The Rock are in the ring, and they're like... It's not just about, like, them wrestling each other. It's about, like, their personas. And they, like, one will be good and one will be bad. And there's a little bit of acting to it. And some fanfare and exciting type of things. And, like, one crazy thing has to happen every time there's a match. Like, somebody has to jump off of something very high or I don't know what else. That's pretty much what I know about professional wrestling. They wrestle for a number of predetermined rounds, and I'm assuming there is a point system of some kind, but also that the winner should be pretty obvious, as it is in many sports, in air quotes.
Yeah, and I guess you know this, but like the big like knock, quote unquote, against professional wrestling is that it's fake, right?
Right.
Right. I assume that's, or you know.
Okay, so also I know that professional wrestling is fake. I knew that before Casey said it.
Yeah, I feel like we should get that out there because we know that. Don't at me. Okay, well that's good.
I have solid knowledge of professional wrestling.
Yeah, sort of. You have the gist of it. It's not quite right.
Okay.
But you're pretty close.
Okay.
So, what's really interesting to me about wrestling is it's governed in large part still, even though everybody knows it's scripted, by a code, if you like, that's called kayfabe. Have you ever heard this term?
Never.
Kayfabe is what makes wrestling wrestling. It's basically agreeing to not act like it's fake. So kayfabe means you're always in character when you're wrestling, when you're in the ring. It means that, you know, if you're like the Undertaker, who's a character who plays this undead zombie guy.
I actually do know about the Undertaker.
Yeah.
I know like 3 things maybe about the Undertaker.
But he's because of kayfabe, when he's in the ring, he's the Undertaker. That's his character. And it goes really far. Like if you're hurt, like if you're legitimately injured in the ring, you make that part of your spot. You don't give up the facade that it is a real thing. It's sort of the code of wrestlers that everybody abides by. And the rare instances when a wrestler breaks that fourth wall and admits, you know, that it's scripted or whatever, that's a big deal. Wrestling, kind of as you alluded to, is really, it's a morality play. It's a comic book in human form. And so there are characters. There are good characters and evil characters, they're called heels and baby faces. So your heels are your bad guys, your baby faces are your good guys. And these characters will get in feuds, as they're called, which are just long-running, you know, I don't like you because you did something that, you know, pissed me off, or you beat up my friend. They have all sorts of excuses to get into feuds.
Okay.
So that's why you'll see some wrestlers sometimes wrestle each other multiple times, and so they'll have, like, championship belts that they're going for. And in the course of these feuds, they will do things, they'll cut promos, which are like their interviews, right?
Right.
That's how guys like The Rock got really popular, because he had his, you know, finally, The Rock has come back to Austin, or whatever, you know what I mean? So they cut these promos, and they're called works, which just means that they're working over like a crowd. Sometimes a wrestler will go off script, and they'll say what they really mean. That's called a shoot. So if a wrestler, you know, says something like yeah, I actually hate that guy, or whatever, and he actually means it, it's real, it's a shoot. But because of kayfabe, you don't always know what's real and what's not real. And sometimes wrestling companies will make use of this in what's called a work shoot, which is where a character pretends to be saying something real, but actually he's doing it with like approval as part of a gimmick or a feud. So you get layers and layers, and it's awesome. When a wrestler's in the ring, as you alluded to, it's a show as much as an athletic competition. So their goal is to try to get heat from an audience. So heat is just a reaction. There's good heat, there's bad heat, there's cheap heat, which is when a wrestler comes out to like Illinois and is like, you know what sucks? The state of Illinois. And the crowd boos. That's cheap heat because they didn't actually earn it. When a wrestler is like, a crowd is really into a wrestler, they call that getting over. And when a wrestler comes out and there's a big crowd reaction, that's called a pop. Wrestling has an amazing amount of jargon.
I was just gonna say, like, these are all new terms, and just, wow. This world is like, I knew it was in depth, but this is a lot more so than I thought.
Yeah. The matches in most professional wrestling they're scripted in that the outcomes are usually predetermined, but they're not generally scripted at the move-to-move level. So wrestlers will have a general idea, like I'll beat you up for a while, you'll beat me up, and then we'll do maybe a couple of these signature moves, and they'll map out in broad strokes how a match is going to go. Sometimes you'll get really highly choreographed sequences or guys who've been working together a long time, but generally, a lot of the moment-to-moment action is ad-libbed. They're kind of making it up. And the funny thing, usually, like, there's a referee the referee is in a sense guiding the action sometimes. So they'll be like getting instructions from backstage, telling the wrestlers what to do. When a wrestler like takes a big bump, which is what happens, like if they fall down, it's called a bump. It's true fact.
Another term.
Yep. After a spot, which is one of the big action set pieces.
Another term.
Yep. So there'll be a high spot, and a wrestler will take a bump. The referee might go over and actually legitimately check and be like, hey, you okay? Like, kind of whisper it under the ear, and the wrestler will make some signal that they're actually not dead, and the ref will continue the match. Even if the wrestler's hurt, as we know, they'll find a way to work it in the story, unless it's really bad. That's basically how it works, and then after, a set period of time, most matches are just won by a straight pinfall, just 1, 2, 3. There's no point scoring or anything.
Dang it.
There are a number of gimmick matches, things like a steel cage match where one wrestler has to escape from a cage. There are hardcore matches where they have weapons. In Japan, you get like death matches where they have like barbed wire and fire and all sorts of stuff.
But they don't actually kill each other, right? It's just more dangerous.
Yes. Men have died in a wrestling ring.
Well,
that's
not okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's scripted, but it's not fake. Like, if you see somebody landing on it, it's hard canvas. Like, these guys are beating the hell out of each other.
Okay.
It may be dudes in lycra spandex, wail on each other, but they're real athletes. So that's essentially pro wrestling in a nutshell. Do you feel like you were edified by that discussion?
I think I get it now. I knew maybe a little bit more than I thought I did. But man, like, those terms, I'm never going to learn those. I'm never going to learn all those terms.
It goes deeper than that. There's a lot more vocabulary.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Can you name any popular current wrestlers besides John Cena?
So there's John Cena. And there's Hulk Hogan. No, but, okay, so I know Hulk Hogan isn't actually wrestling anymore, but, like, isn't his daughter a wrestler now? Maybe?
I actually don't know that. No, I don't know.
I don't know. I thought I had heard maybe that there was a Hogan child wrestler, but I could be wrong. There's female professional wrestlers, right?
That's actually kind of a big deal.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
This is actually really, it's like kind of cool. I mean, so
Quick
like back in
breakdown.
back in the day, back in the 90s, professional wrestling has not historically been what you call the most progressive of events. Women were they were objectified. It was pretty bad. There were things like bra and panty matches and mud wrestling. It got kind of gross. I liked it because I was a teenager, but now looking back on it now, it was not cool.
Dumb teenagers.
It was not okay. And that's kind of been the story until pretty recently. Like, there have always been women wrestlers who were like athletic, but we're kind of entering an era now when female wrestlers have actually started to take a little bit more of a forefront as wrestlers, as athletes, and not so much as sex objects. And there are some wrestlers now who are some female wrestlers who are incredibly talented. My favorite her name is Sasha Banks, and she's just a lot of fun to watch. There's also Charlotte Flair, who's a famous professional wrestler, Ric Flair's daughter.
That's who I was thinking of, not a Hogan. I was thinking of Sasha Flair.
Yeah, Charlotte Flair.
Sorry. I'm combining names here. I think I was actually thinking of Sasha Fierce, which is Beyonce's alter ego, but that's another thing. We could do Beyonce for a topic.
There are absolutely elements. I don't know a thing about Beyonce. There are absolutely elements of actually Beyonce and Sasha Banks' character. But anyway, women's wrestling is becoming a thing, and it's actually really cool, and that's why wrestling is... Like, you'll see, like, little girls at wrestling arenas now and holding up the signs for their favorite wrestlers, and it's just neat. So that's fun. So wrestling is cool and good now.
Cool. Good. I approve. Thank you for listening to our first episode of Not Quite Right.
And I hope you've learned a lot about pro wrestling and reproduction, and maybe next time we can combine these topics and actually talk about relationships within professional wrestling.
We should probably do something entirely different.
That we might do that too.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye.